Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to walk you through the best and worst foods to eat for eczema. Okay, so I know this whole diet thing when it comes to eczema can be really confusing. So I wanted to at least give you guys a place to start. So let's talk about the best foods that you guys can eat for eczema. So something about eczema is you kind of have an individual eczema formula. So some people would have candida, some people might have an overworked liver, and some people might have a lot of issues with stress. And there's different foods that go along with each of these things, and you might be somebody that has all three. So by tracking your food, you're able to figure out what foods are affecting you poorly and what foods are affecting you positively. So there's some foods that are low in salicylates. There's some other things that affect the liver like amines and oxalates, but I really focus on salicylates because usually when something is low in that, it does pretty well with eczema. So here's some foods that are low in salicylates. And this means if you realize that your liver is overworked, which you can figure out if you are day itching. Okay, what the heck is day itching? Day itching is when you eat, you're itching after you eat. So I personally had this issue really bad, and my liver was super overworked. And you can actually repair your liver by giving it a break and detoxing it. And you can detox it with milk thistle or dandelion tea. So foods low in salicylates would be things like cabbage, leek. A lot of meats can be really low in salicylates, but not canned or fermented meats. They usually are very high in things that affect your liver. You can also eat, like usually lettuce is pretty low in salicylates. Sweet potato is lower in salicylates. You can also eat lentils and beans. Okay, my cat is making me a little bit nervous. You wanna come up here? You wanna come up? I have two little kittens. Come on up here. Ha, we got one. We got a kitten up here. Okay, so back to salicylates. Rice can be low in salicylates. Oh, goodbye. It's a little bit tricky to eat for low salicylate, but it's not the hardest thing in the world. There's a lot of lists out there that can help you figure out what's low in salicylates. I would just cross-reference it with a few lists. And I'm actually working on something called the Ultimate Eczema Food Guide. And it is a giant spreadsheet that's gonna tell you guys like if there's salicylates, if it's good for candida, if it's good for your gut, and actually how to purchase it. Like if there's any concerns, like for example, tuna has mercury in it, and I talk about that in there. It's gonna be a massive spreadsheet, so stay tuned for that spreadsheet. But you can look up a list of foods that are low in salicylates and just cross-reference it and see how your body personally feels. Because I reacted to carrots, and carrots are really low in salicylates, but they had just enough salicylates that I reacted. So a lot of what I was eating was like green beans, salmon, lentils, cabbage. It was not a fun life, but I ended up feeling a heck of a lot better. So now we're gonna move on to talking about foods that are good for candida. So candida is a fungus that overgrows in your body. And God, they're so cute. Okay, it's a fungus, right? It's not a bacteria, it's a fungus. And a lot of times when people take a lot of rounds of antibiotics, that fungus can easily overgrow. It's what causes yeast infections. It also lives in the gut. So it overgrows, and then you end up accidentally feeding it. So rice will feed candida. So this kind of is like the worst foods, but rice can feed candida. Fruit can feed candida, sweet potatoes can feed it. There's a lot of things that feed it, but grains are especially the worst. Sugar is the worst, whether it's natural or processed. So no maple syrup, no honey, no agave. You can have stevia or you can have monk fruit. I know this whole diet thing is super tricky, but that's why I'm here, to explain all of this to you guys. So with candida, some foods that you want to lean into would be meat, because meat doesn't feed candida at all, and it's actually quite useful, especially if you're eating a really good quality meat. What is a really good quality meat? So if it's beef, it would be organic free range. If it is chicken, it would be organic free range. If it's fish, you want to do a wild caught fish. Shellfish is actually really, really good for eczema, but I would be careful if your liver is overworked. If you had candida, then shellfish is fine as long as you're not allergic. Let's see what else. It's crazy to have learned all of this about eczema. I feel like in my brain, like I've created all these patterns and I've figured out all this stuff about how to help you guys with eczema, and I get all these questions, and it's like, it's just cool that I ended up learning all of this stuff, and like my brain houses all of this insane information about eczema. Okay, so I also hope you guys don't mind this more casual chit chat. I think it's more fun when it's more personal and it's like we're sitting here chilling, like having a conversation, rather than a lot of my other videos that are super formal and I'm like uptight and not fully myself. Like I'm a pretty relaxed human being. I'm pretty chill. I mean, I work very hard and I can be tense sometimes, but like my general personality is pretty chill. So I do enjoy making videos that are a little bit more my speed. So we talked about candida, we talked about your liver, so let's talk about stress. So when your body is not dealing with stress very well, usually people with TSW, your adrenal gland is basically not producing enough anti-inflammatories. And there are foods that will make this all worse. So you want to avoid caffeine. So any form of caffeine. So whether that be chocolate, black tea, Earl Grey tea, white tea, green tea, coffee. All of those have got to come out of your diet. And I would also make sure you're staying away from fridge foods. So fried foods, refined sugar, eggs, dairy, gluten. I think these things can increase cortisol, increase your stress hormone when you're not really sure what your body's reacting to. So a lot of times you can become very anxious from grains. So if you realize that stress is your biggest issue, I would go grain-free and cut caffeine. And if you're a caffeine addict, you're gonna have to wean yourself off of it. Oh, my necklace is over there. You're gonna have to wean yourself off of it. It's kind of just, it's what you're gonna have to do because your adrenal gland needs to actually heal. And so it's funny because my adrenal gland has healed and I've now become a extreme lightweight when it comes to caffeine. So now I can have like a handful of chocolate chips and I get extremely caffeinated for the entire day. But that's how I know that my adrenal gland is actually functioning properly. Let me see if I can sum up things to help you. So I want to circle back and go back to your liver and talk about foods that are bad for your liver. Almonds are actually eczema's worst nightmare for so many different reasons, so I would cut almonds out. Tomatoes are really high in salicylates. Peppers are very high in salicylates. Something that became a huge topic of conversation on my Instagram page was when I said that turmeric isn't good for eczema, and that's actually because turmeric contains something called curcumin. It is a compound found in turmeric and cumin, and when you consume it, when you have eczema, it actually makes, what I think it does is it allows for your Th2 killer cells to reproduce, which when you have eczema, your Th2 killer cells are more dominant. Like they're basically what's fighting your skin. Because it's an autoimmune disorder, eczema is basically like your immune system gets off, and so then your immune system starts attacking your skin. That's what eczema is. And when you eat something that contains curcumin, it will enhance that Th2 cell. So it's making them more likely to attack the skin. So instead, well, not instead, but like alternatively, if you have psoriasis or arthritis or Crohn's disease, turmeric is actually fantastic because it inhibits Th1 cells. So it allows for inflammation to be reduced. So like joint inflammation. So that's why, and I know it stirred up the pot, but that's why. And there's research studies that show that. The research isn't 100%, but I'd rather tell you guys than not tell you and have you be reacting to turmeric. In conclusion, we have some food groups that are generally not so great for eczema. Like, I would say in general, grains don't do that well for people with eczema. In general, very good high quality meat is pretty good for eczema. But not all people with eczema. Not all people with eczema actually react to meat very well. So you're gonna have to see what your body does well with, but at least I can start with some generals. So cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower, broccoli, like dark leafy greens, not kale. Kale's actually not that great for eczema. Actually, let me not say cruciferous vegetables. Let me say cauliflower, broccoli, they're generally pretty good for eczema. I would say obviously cabbage and salmon and leeks. I talk about these all the time. My number one food that helps you heal is bone broth because it contains glycine and it contains collagen. So bone broth is amazing for your body. It helps repair your gut, helps repair your skin, and it's overall absolutely incredible. Small fish, small fatty fish like trout, salmon, sardines, mackerel, those are really, really good for eczema as long as you can tolerate fish. These all have to be general because everyone's body is different, but I've coached a lot of people. I'm an eczema coach and I've coached a lot of people, and so I know what generally works for people and what generally does not. Caffeine overall for people with eczema, it doesn't do well. I would highly encourage you to not drink smoothies every day. A lot of times it makes your liver actually overworked when you're having like this kale, spinach, like almond milk, berry smoothie. A lot of like piecing that apart. Kale's really high in salicylates, spinach is high in salicylates, almonds are high in salicylates, the berries and the fruit can feed candida. It's not the best for people with eczema. So where I would start is I would start by eating like lentils and beans. So for dinner, cook up some lentils or make it into a lentil soup. Avoid tomatoes, avoid peppers, avoid anything spicy. Coconut cream, as long as your liver is not super overworked, is usually good. Coconut in general, as long as your liver isn't overworked, is pretty good for eczema. As long as your liver's okay, avocados are good for eczema. If candida is your primary concern, eggs are decent for candida. I'm realizing how convoluted this sounds right now, so if you're watching this, I would recommend watching it again and taking notes. The whole point here is you have to figure out what's going on with your body. There's some general things that I can tell you and some things that you probably learned from this video, but you're gonna have to track your food and figure out how your body feels best. And in the future, there will be an ultimate food guide for eczema that you'll be able to purchase. I think I'm gonna sell it at $250, and it's gonna pretty much tell you everything you can and can't eat and what foods are good and what foods are bad. And you can look and compare different foods and look up foods. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, try following the mess that this video was. And I do really hope that it helped you because I know how insane eczema can make you feel. So I will see you in my next video, guys. Take care. Bye.
I like crashing waves, but I wanna see them at first.